This is a different kind of honest look because Pyrrha Nikos is a character who is no longer a part of the plot. She's dead and has been dead for over 2 whole volumes. So instead of gauging my feelings about the character to this point, I can evaluate their character in whole without the possibility of more stuff coming out down the line, or so I hope. That makes this honest look the most complete by nature. Sure, there's also the Vital Tournament arc, but there's possibilities for more arcs like that down the line, or further exploration into the Great War and how it led to the tournament to begin with. Same can be said about Team Coffee, who has not returned since Volume 3, but very well could anytime the writers want. My honest looks at Ruby, Weiss, and Yang don't really hold up with everything that has happened in Volume 5, and the scripts for Osmond and Jean were written primarily before that volume concluded. Even my honest look at Blake, one that has only been further validated by Volume 5, still feels like it's missing something since I wasn't able to address how the Menagerie arc ultimately panned out. Pyrrha Nikos is an odd fixture in RWBY. For the entirety of her life in the show, Team Juniper was strangely disconnected from the main characters. Sure, RWBY was always marketed as an ensemble series, but that ensemble was meant to only extend to the 4 members of the titular team. Until Volume 4, after Pyrrha's death, Juniper had their own arcs and own, I refuse to say the word adventures that didn't tie in with the wider narrative that Team RWBY got wrapped up in. Pyrrha is contradictory in that she is a boring, yet fascinating character. Pyrrha first and foremost was a unique foil to Jean. Where he was bumbling, weak, dumb, and in over his head, Pyrrha was graceful, strong, and almost too good for the school. I've made this complaint before. If this is all the Grimm are capable of, if this is as big and strong as they get, then why do any of these kids need to go to the school? This complaint doesn't extend to Pyrrha because I think there's a point to be made. As strong as Ruby, Weiss, Blake, Yang, Nora, and Ren are, Pyrrha is several leagues above them. Her fight with Cinder shows she's probably on par with your average huntsman already. So why bother with the school? Well, she's there for a different reason. Motive is a vital element for any character, and hers can be a little bit murky. Ruby wants to be a huntress, she wants to do the right thing, become a hero like the ones in her books. Jean wants to live up to his family legacy. Weiss wants to salvage her family legacy and undo the damage her father has done. Blake wants to fight for equality. Yang wants adventures and wants to find answers. Other than Ruby and Jean, none of these motivations require going to a Huntsman Academy. But Pyrrha isn't there to fight. She's not there to learn what it takes to be a huntress. She's there for people. She's there to build the kind of relationships her life never allowed.
And thanks to you, I've made friendships that will last a lifetime.
She's portrayed like an Olympic athlete, someone who has trained their entire life for sport and competition, but her status as a celebrity has put her on a pedestal. She has had difficulties building meaningful relationships. All her past relationships are probably more like her and Weiss in Volume 1. Sure, Weiss is also a pseudo-celebrity and can relate to Pyrrha on that level and is probably up to her speed, but Weiss just wants to manipulate her. She wants to use Pyrrha like a sword to form the most powerful team in the school. That's not what Pyrrha wants. She doesn't want to be the best. She already is, and it's caused her nothing but grief.
When you're placed on a pedestal like that for so long, you become separated from the people that put you there.
Similar to Saitama from One Punch Man. What she wants is Jean, someone who treats her like a normal human first and a strong warrior second. There's cultural precedent for this. Some people are more focused on what people do and how well they do it. Others are focused on how trustworthy someone is. Pyrrha definitely falls in the latter. Throughout the first 3 volumes, she goes through the clearest arc and the only one that has any kind of conclusion. She puts the wants of others ahead of herself. Her personality borders on autism, and that's not an insult. In fact, I wish it was a little more intentional to make Pyrrha like a gladiatorial Rain Man or like Ben Affleck from that one movie a while ago, but that doesn't seem to be the case. She wants Jean to become a great leader and takes it upon herself to train him. This is mostly due to admiration. It's really no skin off Pyrrha's bones. She's strong enough to take on an ordinary team single-handedly. She'd likely do fine with or without his leadership. She submits to his authority, and luckily for the whole team, by Volume 2, he's the kind of leader who's fine delegating authority and letting his team decide stuff.
Ren and Nora wanted to shadow the sheriff of a nearby village.
We set out tomorrow.
I don't think being a great fighter is the same as being a great leader. I don't think Jean is either one of those, but it's clear that's what they were going for. Jean is the one who makes the plan, and Pyrrha willingly becomes his sword, and then what's left of her literally becomes part of his sword and shield after she dies. Pyrrha doesn't have much of a will of her own. She's so enthralled with the relationships she's managed to build at Beacon, not to mention so infatuated with Jean, that she never carves out her own identity. This is what makes it so easy for Osmond to manipulate convince her to become the Fall Maiden. The maiden storyline has fallen under fire recently. Many of my cohorts have lambasted the entire idea. I'll admit it's been mishandled, but I'm not averse to the idea, and I like how it was handled in Volume 3. It gave Pyrrha's arc way more gravitas than it would if the maidens never existed. I don't talk about inspirations for the series for a number of reasons. I feel Ruby is hollow with its reference to classic literature. For instance, White Schnee is supposed to be like Snow White, but outside of the name, there's no connection. And since Remnant isn't Earth, there's nothing dramatic about the reference either. It's just meaningless and doesn't amount to anything. Except in the case of Pyrrha. She's a reference to Achilles, the hero of the Iliad. She's seen as invincible, but she's not. Her weapon and outfit are of decisively Hellenistic style, her name reference to fire and victory, but there's also the idea of Pyrrhic victory, victory at great cost. I made a pretty outrageous claim that Pyrrha is a Mary Sue. I was working with an inaccurate definition and what people generally think of as a Mary Sue. Overpowered, faultless, admired, these are all traits people hurl as if they're insults, but a Mary Sue isn't a character, it's a crutch. But with the definition I used in that video, I stand by what I said. People expect a character to die somewhere down the line to raise the stakes, and there was no way Rooster Teeth could raise the stakes that high after the abysmal Volume 2 finale without taking the most powerful character in the school and ending her life. Pyrrha's death works on nearly every conceivable level. It's a large reason why Volume 3 is considered by many to be the best volume, even though, for my money, I prefer Volume 4. Even so, Volume 3 had the best finale of the show. It's one of the best episodes in the series, and one of the best finales I've seen in recent memory. First, there's the talk about destiny, which I alluded to in my previous video. The last days of her life are spent internally struggling over her destiny. Like Spider-Man, she's forced to choose between being the warrior and being the friend. Does she become the Fall Maiden, save the world, and lead the Illuminati to victory at the potential cost of her individuality, personality, and more importantly, the friendship she's tried so hard to achieve? Or does she reject the maiden power, stay with Team Juniper, and fight on their terms? Either way, she's a sword, but is it going to be Osmond or Jean that benefits? Jean doesn't realize this when he tells Pyrrha not to hold back. He tells her not to let anything stand between her and destiny without even realizing that he's what's in her way. Pyrrha pushes him away and chooses Osmond after this. That way there's still a chance she can be with Jean, have her cake and eat it too, or there's the real possibility that it won't work at all and they're wasting their time. Then there's her interplay with Cinder. Cinder also believes in destiny, but takes what she believes is her destiny by force. She uses others the same way Osmond does. Osmond's plan fails and Cinder becomes the Fall Maiden, but Pyrrha chooses to push Jean away and fight anyway. Either she beats Cinder and becomes the hero, gets rescued and is relieved of her self-imposed burdens, or she dies, relieving her of destiny altogether. And she wins at the cost of her life. If she never went into the tower with Osmond and Jean, Ruby and Weiss would have never gone back for her. If she didn't push Jean away, he wouldn't have called Weiss for help. If that didn't happen, Ruby wouldn't have ran up Beacon Tower. Ruby wouldn't have witnessed Pyrrha's death, which triggered her own powers, resulting in Cinder getting weaker, the dragon freezing, and Vale being safe for the moment. The scene also works outside of the writing. The animation is great, as is the accompanying score and cinematography. There's good reason why this scene is still stuck in people's minds 16 episodes, 4 character shorts, and over 2 seasons of Chibi later. You can argue the merits of good writing all you want, but there's only 2 questions that need to be asked in a review. What's it trying to do, and is it working? Figuring the hows and whys is next level analysis. When Pyrrha died, I had this feeling of contentment. I didn't care much for the character. I saw her death as a good thing for the story that would influence character growth. The only way they can ruin that is to bring her back. And judging by fan reactions, it worked on all those levels for a wide variety of people. Hell, even Fatman Falling made a video saying this is a good scene. And if something works on that level, I have no ground to stand on. It's not like trying to make a droid likable and failing so hard that when you give her a dramatically sad death, the audience bursts into applause. Ahem. Wow, this has turned way more positive than I predicted. My critic side is trying to find a negative. Jen Brown isn't that good of a voice actor and struggles to emote in her scenes sometimes.
I'm not quite sure. I was planning on letting the chips fall where they may. I'm sure our leader knows exactly what he's doing.
None of it makes sense. This isn't how things were supposed to happen.
I guess for the most part, she's just kind of boring and flat. Her death retroactively objectively made her interesting. I wasn't crazy about the whole I have no friends because they thought I was too unapproachable thing. It rubbed me the wrong way, but it's still a better bit of characterization than anything they did with Jean in the first 2 volumes. So yeah, for all the idiots who think I hate everything about Ruby, there are some things I genuinely like about the show. The best part about Pyrrha is that this is definitive. I'll probably never get a chance to talk about her again. There's no way they can screw this up without making the kind of decision that would ruin the show for everybody forever. Can't say that about the next video. Join me next time for the 2-for-1 Ren and Nora combo pack honest look to round out Juniper month. I'm Mediocrity4. Thanks for watching.